Hi guys, it's Mrs. Alberts here and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so here with poem number 9, HANSWORS deur S.C. Pretorius. Right, so just a little bit of background or history about the circus. Unlike the circus we know today, back in the day it was mainly focused on what they called a freak show or a sideshow, where they basically extorted people with deformities and they used it in the show so that people could laugh at them. Strange people, conjoined twins, people who had deformities like or unique conditions, like this Italian guy whose twin brother Johannes protruded upside down from his chest. But what I want you to look at is in 19th century America, gawking at people who were born with deformities was not only socially acceptable, it was considered family entertainment. And P.T. Barnum, and those of you who have watched the musical The Greatest Showman will know P.T. Barnum. He made millions by capitalizing on this. His freak shows brought together an amalgam of people considered to be curiosities, like bearded ladies, tattooed men, and severely disfigured, and yet normally short and tall. But the thing that the movie did not show you was that many of these people were unwillingly forced into the industry as young children. And about Barnum, he hyperbolized and sometimes altogether falsified the origins of these performers, where they came from. And he made them out to be beasts and rare specimens or cretins. And when he was met with criticism for perpetuating hoaxes, he accounted that he was only on a mission to sprinkle society with a little magic. I believe actually in the movie they do talk about him wanting to entertain and bring a little bit of magic to the public. When you look at this, here we have a video that was filmed in 1942 about a clown doing his tricks, and you'll see that in this poem we are going to talk about the word firmament, and that is the top part of your big top circus tent. And you can see that these guys are all the way at the top of the tent, and they are entertaining by not only being funny but doing death-defying stunts. And just a little bit of a peek into the background of our clowns. Okay, so here we go, HANSWORS. Oor sy afsigtelike bochel en kromheid het hulle hom gekoggel, en bitterder was hul venyn as sy vergroeide ruggraatpyn. Clown. Because of his hideous hunchback and crookedness, they mocked him, and more bitter was their malice than his pain from his crooked spine. When we look at the title, HANSWORS, it means clown, we actually think that this is going to be a funny poem or a light-hearted poem, because clowns are mocking other people, or they are mocking situations, but they mock themselves, and this causes the audience to laugh. Unfortunately, grade 12s, I am so very sorry, but we've had a few nice poems and then we just decided to go really dark, and most of the last poems are going to be all about death and sadness and depression, and I apologize. We teachers do not pick these poems. When we look at line 1 to 4, it's a hyperbole, it's an exaggeration of his physique and about how he is built. So they've just exaggerated his deformity in words so that you can get an idea of how the people viewed him. So we've got the word afsigtelike, which means hideous, and then we talk about a bochel, which is a hump. And if you think about Hunchback of Notre Dame, it's that little hump at the back of his, at the back of his back. I know how that sounds. Okay, so that is possibly a form of kyphosis, which is a form of scoliosis, where your back, your ruggraat, now suddenly the English word is absolutely spine, your spine, where the spine basically grows or is deformed at birth. And when we look at line 2, they talk about kromheid. Kromheid means to be bent forward, and that is because of the kyphosis, pushing your back into a crouching position, and that must be extremely painful. We see the alliteration of hul and hum in line 2, which emphasizes the two words hul and hum. So what is happening here? He has a hideous hump, and he is bent forward. He is kromheid, and that is why they are mocking him. But they are putting the hul and hum next to each other with alliteration to emphasize that they are mocking him. So he is not mocking himself at this point, and he is not mocking other people. He is the one that is being mocked. Now, kochel means to be mocked because of his deformity. And then in line 3, we've got en bitterder was hul venyn. Now, normally we say hul venyn was bitterder, but they've swapped it around for two reasons. First, to put that bitterder in the front position to emphasize, but also for rymdwang. So they are forcing rhyme at the end of the sentence by using the word venyn to rhyme with ruggraatpyn. So that's why you have your inversie there. So it has to do with how painful the people's words were. So we've got him being deformed, and he has a painful situation already going, plus the people are mocking him, and that causes him a lot of pain as well. Venyn means malice, so they are malice in their words and in their actions, and that is actually for him worse than his spinal cord deformity, which also causes him a lot of pain. And we've got this contrast between their words causing him pain and his actual physical pain. So here's just a picture of actual kyphosis. It says it's an exaggerated forward rounding of the upper back. In older people, kyphosis is often due to weakness in the spinal bones that causes them to compress or crack. Other types of kyphosis can appear in infants or teens due to malformation of the spine or wedging of the spinal bones over time. So that Tussen die diere in 'n hoek het hy die eensaamheid gesoek. Met klere wat gedurig gaar is, wat doen die vent met sy salaris? Among the animals in a cage, he looked for solitude. With clothes that are always torn, what does the wretch do with his salary? Between the animals in a corner, that's where he felt safe. He was basically secluding himself away from people because animals do not judge. And that is where he decided to be alone. He chose to be alone because of the people's malice and being mocked the whole time. And this is ironic because clowns are supposed to be funny and social people, right? But here he decides to rather go and hide away from everybody else. And then also it's ironic because he isn't technically alone. He is still surrounded by animals, but he is alone. Then we've got in line 6 your colon, and a colon always tells you that an explanation is about to follow. So what explanation? Let's look. Why did he go and seclude himself amongst the animals? Why did he go there exactly? It's because of the direct words of the people. So this, yes, it tells us an explanation. It says why he is hiding, but it also shows you the direct words, I want to say indirect or direct speech. So this is what they say. With clothing that are so torn, what is he doing with his salary? So behind his back, they are trying to find out why he always looks so threadbare. Why is his clothes worn? Why does he look neglected? And then they also criticize him. They want to know, what does he do with his salary? The alliteration there emphasizes how the people are judging him. They're using the words gedurig and gaar, which means constantly threadbare. So they have not just seen him, they have been watching him for a while. And then they call him vent, which is a very condescending word. It shows disdain to this man. They do not like him. They speak down to him. And this rhetorical question is, what is he doing with his salary? It looks like he is not earning any money. But let's look at why is this a rhetorical question? Because he is not going to answer them. And by not asking him, by speaking behind his back, they will never get the real or true answer. Hy het maandeliks by die poskantoor 'n brief gepos of een gelees, by die dierkratte oor en oor. Sou daar tog ergens iemand wees? He's at the post office monthly, posting a letter or reading one at the animal cages. Over and over. Could there be someone, somewhere? Okay, first we've got Elise. It's supposed to be hy het. Remember, it's always for rhythm or metric purposes to make sure that is, it speeds up the sentence process. Monthly, elke maand, maandeliks, it's monthly. So he is sending letters and somebody is answering. So there is somebody that he is posting these letters to. They correspond. Nobody knows who this is with because he is a very private person. He does not share it with anybody. Where does he go? He goes to the animal cages to read it. So he wants to read this himself privately. He keeps it away from other people. But look at that repetition of oor en oor. You only read a letter over and over when it's somebody that you love, that you are corresponding with. So it shows you emotion. And again, we've got your colon telling you that there is an explanation to follow. And this is also direct words again. So the people's comments, could there be someone, somewhere? Obviously, everybody is are people, and people are loved, and people have family. Is it so hard to believe that somebody with a deformity can be loved by someone? The question is rather, who is the someone, not if there is someone. So this rhetorical question again is behind his back instead of asking the man himself, and therefore they will never get an answer. En daar die ewige reuk van drank, nie een sou huil as hy bedank, maar waar hy in die circus tent, apagtig teen die firmament, hoog teen die takelwerk kon klouter. And then there's no space to continue with that stanza. And that eternal smell of drink, no one would cry if he resigned. But where he climbs in the circus tent, ape-like against the firmament, high up against the rigging, we have the smell of drink. That means he's an alcoholic. Possibly the reason for his alcoholism could be the fact that these people are mocking him so badly about his disfigurement. It must be a terrible burden to bear, to be constantly mocked and having the malice of people continuously. You're not making friends. Everybody is just making these horrible comments towards you. So it's trying to hide the sad and the pain. Also, maybe the actual physical pain. We know that in some cases people are getting hooked on alcohol to numb some form of actual pain as well. But it can also be to have that little, we call it Dutch courage, before he climbs up on these high stilts to the top of the big top so he can do his circus act. So there's many reasons why he could be an alcoholic. We are not saying that it's right or a good thing, but you can kind of see how that can happen to a person that is so lonely and so hurt physically and emotionally, and who has to do these daring tricks in the form of entertainment. So we have a colon again explanations to follow about why he probably drinks. Because in line 14 they actually say, nobody would cry if he resigned. So that gives you the idea that there is nobody who's going to miss him. But look at number 15, maar. That's a wending, a turn. There's a contrasting conjunction. Even though he is deformed and in so much pain and an alcoholic, he still has, or is still able to do these daring tricks for entertainment value, and he is good at it. They say that he is climbing up those stilts and things like an ape, like a monkey. So it's a metaphor. He's being compared to a monkey climbing up there. And he climbs all the way to the firmament. The firmament means the highest part of the big top. And takelwerk is all those ropes and, like I said, the stilts and things that you saw in the beginning of that video to try and get to the top of the tent. And he climbs like an ape. So here the word clouter, only apes clouter. Clouter means to climb, but in a more animal-like way. So the rest of that stanza says, Die dood uittart en klein kabouter sy duiwelstreke uithaal onder, dat almal skater vir die wonder, is hy hoeseer verag, verlate, nog deur die baas beskou as bate. He taunts death and like a little goblin carry out his devilish tricks below, so that everyone laughed at the wonder. Was he, much as he was despised, forsaken, still considered an asset by the boss? Those tricks that he does, they are death-defying. These, I don't think any of us would have the guts to go and fly like an acrobat up there at the top of that big tops. He is like a little kabouter, they say. Now, this almost comes from an Afrikaans saying stoute kabouter, but also it could be that he might be small, but he is metaphorically compared to a goblin, a small, naughty creature. Also, duivelstreke refers to that same thing. A goblin isn't a nice thing. It has a negative connotation to it. And then they add duivelstreke. Devil as that first part, duivel, which means that he is tricking people. So again, a negative thing. So the view of this person isn't positive. But while he climbs up there and he does his death-defying stunts like a little goblin, and he does these tricks and makes people laugh. Skater in line 20 is to make people laugh really loud. So that's why I put the little LOL there with the funny emoji that cries. 21, verag, verlate. He's not being respected. He's not being loved. He's alone. Even his colleagues hate him. They don't even think that he will be missed, or anybody would cry if he was to quit his job. But in line 22, it's ironic. His boss still sees him as an asset because he still makes money. He still brings the crowds in. So even though he's not loved by his colleagues, he's still an integral part of the circus. Toe het 'n brief gekom eendag. Hy het oor die bed gebuk, verblind, terwyl die boggelvroukie sag, sterwend fluister, Dankie, my kind. Then a letter came one day. He bent over the bed, blinded, while the hunchbacked woman, softly dying, whispered, Thank you, my child. In line 23, we have the word to, and this is the final turn in our poem. Here the focus changes from where he is at the circus to a completely new venue. So then a letter came one day, and we've got our ellipse, and our ellipse there. The function here is first to make the reader wonder what is going to happen next, and then to indicate that there is a pause because time and place has changed. So line 24, we are in a completely different space. We start with hy het, Elise. He bent over a bed. And that bed is at at somebody else's place, and we'll see it is at his mother's place. And he is standing bent over a bed, blinded with tears. Verblind means to be blinded with tears. While a boggelvroukie, look at that diminutive, so it's a small woman, and she also has a hunchback. So that is a family member. That is his mother. And she softly, while dying, whispers the following, and then we've got our colon, and then her inverted commas, her words. She says, "Thank you, my child." And again, there's the ellipse telling us that the sentence isn't completed because you need to fill in what is she saying thank you for. So let's think. Thank you, my child. She is busy dying, and her last words is "thank you, my child." And what we can assume by looking at the entire poem is this. He probably had tethered clothing, and he probably didn't look after himself. And every month he went to that post box to send every bit of money he could to his mother, who was probably sick and dying. And he spent all that time in the circus being made fun of, being mocked, doing death-defying stunts, putting his life on the line, and having to deal with people's horrible nature and malice for the person he loved most, his mother. And for that, she thanks him. So these letters that he wrote every month, all these things, was because there was somebody who loved him terribly, his mother, and whom he loved back. He wasn't as lonely as the people gossiped about him, which is very sad. This is a very, very sad poem. So I don't know if YouTube is going to make me cut this last video, but if you ever feel like a clown, like HANSWORS, where people are mocking you for a physical deformity or maybe just a social quirk, whether you feel like when you look in the mirror you do not look like an Instagram filter, please remember these words of this song. You do not have to watch The Greatest Showman, although this is the greatest movie I have ever seen, but I know that some of you might not like musicals and things, but please go and look up the song. It's called This Is Me, and it is absolutely stunning. Please, let's see if we can listen to the song. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, if you've got any questions, you can follow me on Instagram at Afrikaans Classroom. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos, like and share.